and good morning, everybody. My name is Maria Martinez, District 84 Proud Public Relations Manager. I'd like to welcome you to this morning's event. Let me just let you know that in a few minutes, we're going to have the privilege of hearing from our keynote speaker today, the very world champion of public speaking. And we have the honor to have her in District 84 virtual stage this morning. After that, we're going to have a Q&A segment, a question and answer segment. So thanks to those of you that submitted questions in advance. The last 10 or 15 minutes of this morning will go towards Q&A. And who's ready? Who's ready to learn how to write the winning speech? Yes, I am too. So with that being said, please help me welcome our very own Program Quality Director, who will be introducing this morning's speaker, Verity Price.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I am thrilled to be here today, and I'm sure all of you are as well. So some of the things you don't know about Verity. Verity is someone who approaches life a little differently. She's gone from walking 1,200 kilometers across France and Spain in hiking boots in memory of her parents, to performing in high heels to packed houses in Nashville and New York. From not having the money to record her debut album to becoming one of the world's first online crowdfunders. From being terrified of speaking in public to being crowned the 2021 World Champion of Public Speaking. She is about facing fears, finding your voice, and sharing your truth. As the Toastmasters 2021 World Champion, Verity captured the judges and thousands of people's imagination with her winning speech, A Great Read. An inspiring invitation to improve our lives by writing a different story. Helping people to do just that is Verity's passion, and today she's here to help us do just that. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Distinguished Toastmaster 2021 World Champion, Verity Price.
Hello. I hope you enjoyed a quick virtual tour of my district, Southern Africa, 12 countries. So there's a lot of countries that we are in, and just a little bit of traveling and tourism for you before we get started. And hello, District 84. It's so lovely to be with you today. And it's making me nostalgic because back in 2002, I was busy packing my bags to move to Naples, Florida. So I feel like I'm coming back virtually, and maybe one day I will be there in person. So just wonderful to be with you, to share my journey to becoming world champion last year and what I believe will help you write a winning speech. So to get us started, I just want to see if this chat is working, if we are live, awake, alert, enthusiastic. If you enjoy winning, I want you to put that in the chat. Yes, me, hell yes, whatever you want to say. If you enjoy winning, it could be anything, a lottery, a raffle, the international speech contest. I see lots of yeses. Woohoo, heck yes. Okay, we all like winning. Fabulous. Well, there's a story of a man who loved the idea of winning. And what he wanted to win was the lottery. And he thought, if I could just win the lottery, then my life will be perfect. So every Saturday night, he would watch the lucky numbers being drawn. And every Saturday night, he wouldn't win. But he'd be back again the next Saturday and he would watch the numbers. And again, he wouldn't win. And this went on for months. Eventually, one Saturday night, after once again he hadn't won, he looked up at the sky in frustration. He said, why? Why do you never let me win? And a voice from above came down and said, you might want to buy a ticket. So my fellow Toastmasters, in March of last year, I bought my ticket. I put my name in the hat and I entered the proverbial Toastmasters lottery, the international speech contest, with the intention to see how far I could go. Now, you all know how that ended. I got to have the life-changing moment on the 28th of August when I heard, and the world champion of public speaking is Verity Price. And my life kind of just exploded in that moment of joy and elation. I couldn't believe it had happened. I'm still pinching myself. But why? Why did I win? And why last year? Because this was not the first time that I had entered the speech contest, but quite a lot was different when I entered last year. Now, the first time I entered was all the way back in 2012. I was a new Toastmaster. I was a bit of an arrogant Toastmaster because I was already a professional speaker at that point. So I did what confident people sometimes do. They leave preparing till the day before because they think I've got this. And I arrived at the contest thinking, I've got this. And my sister, Kay, who was not a confident speaker, not a confident Toastmaster, had spent a month preparing for the contest. I actually felt a bit sorry for her. I couldn't believe she was taking so long to work on one speech. And I think you're going to guess what happened that night. In second place, Verity Price. My sister beat me. Not only did she beat me at clubs, she went on to win area, division. By then, I'd kind of got over the green-eyed monster because I was really resenting her success. And that, for my ego, was a scary tale that my older sister was doing so much better than me. And I started working with her as her mentor. And she went on to become the third woman to ever win in our district. And then I saw the grueling 3 months she put into preparing 2 speeches to go to Orlando, Florida for the semifinals that year. And we all watched with bated breath here in South Africa, only to hear in second place, Kay Price Lindsay. She was beaten by a young preppy American speaker who you might remember, Ryan Avery. He became world champion 2 days later. But watching Kay's journey showed me the mindset you have to do well in a contest. You have to have a champion mindset. You have to overcome the obstacles of your self-doubt, the challenge of finding that second speech. You've got to be prepared to put in the efforts, the hours of effort, get feedback from countless Toastmasters, learn from the success of previous champions, and give it your all. And having witnessed that journey, I made a very rational decision when it came to speech contests, which was to not enter. I just watched from the sidelines. And you can tell me if you've ever had that, it comes up and you go, oh, not this year. I don't have the speech. I don't have the time. I'm not in the mood. And I did that for years. I kept putting it off. What changed last year was I suddenly had a speech I believed in. I wrote a speech about my mom teaching me to leave the world better than I find it. And a voice said, oh, Verity, that's a contest speech. And then moments later it said, you could become the next world champion of public speaking. So what? Me? Really? And it said, yes, if you buy your tickets. And so I entered the contest last year, having worked on that speech for 3 months before the contest. I took it on, the obstacle of being a young mother, well, not a young mother, let's say an old mother, but a new mother in lockdown. I embraced the challenge of that. I put in the effort of going, I've got to find the time to do this. I've got to make the time. And I put my speech out to more than 42 clubs around the world, both speeches. And I asked over 200 Toastmasters to tell me what I could do to improve. And then I watched every contest speech I possibly could. I really tried to follow in Kay's footsteps of giving the contest journey my all, and lent into having Lance Miller as my coach, which was an extraordinary experience. And all of that hard work, all of that intention, that effort, and the fact that my name was in the hat and I bought my ticket meant that I became the one person last year who got to hear the world champion of public speaking as Verity Price. But 35,000 other people also entered this contest. And what I've realized is if you don't buy your ticket and put your name in the hat, you're not going to know what you could achieve. And only one person this year is guaranteed to win, but everyone else is guaranteed to grow. Every other Toastmaster that enters this contest is guaranteed to grow if we enter it with the right mindset. And so that's really what I realized. I walked away with this beautiful trophy. Let me tell you, it was quite wonderful when it arrived in a box. I was quite sad I wasn't on an actual stage with actual Toastmasters to get it. But this is not what the contest was about for me, because this is a trophy, it's an accolade. This I could lose, but I can never lose the growth that came from committing to see who I could become and how I could expand myself as a speaker using the contest as this incredible platform to do that. So who's buying their ticket this year? Have I got some takers? Who's putting their name in the hat? Let's hear in the chat. Who says, I'm here for the growth, I'm here to learn? Because you know what I've realized? Your ego wants the win. Your soul wants the growth. Ah, Jeff's already purchased his ticket. Yay! Because the growth is the win. That really, really is. And it's the gift that this contest gives to all of us. So I love it. Everyone's here to grow. That makes me very, very happy. So when I talk about the contest kind of being a gift and the growth that we get is the gift, that makes me think about Christmas. I don't know about you, but I love receiving gifts. I'm a big fan of gifts. And so Christmas is my favorite day of the year. To see piles of presents packed under the tree on Christmas morning, all-time favorite. But 8 years ago, I came down on Christmas morning and things were different. There was not one solitary present under the tree. I felt this huge sense of apprehension, but also anticipation, because we decided to do things a little differently that year. My sister and I, and we're very close, Kay and I, you'll hear I speak about her a lot. My brother's also a very integral part of my life, but Kay and I are always up to crazy ideas. We decided that instead of wasting time running around busy, bustling shops trying to buy presents people didn't need, we were going to have a white elephant Christmas. And when I say white elephant, I don't mean the animal. For those of you who are not familiar with the concept, a white elephant is that thing you have or you bought maybe on late night shopping channel and you've never used it. It's sitting at the back of a cupboard or the top of a shelf, gathering dust. And so we decided that a white elephant Christmas would be where everyone who came to our Christmas party had to bring one gift, spectacularly wrapped, but it needed to be something that they no longer used and they wanted to give away. Now, this meant everyone arrived with this heightened sense of anticipation and curiosity. We couldn't wait to open this motley collection of gifts. And the laughter and hilarity that followed as people tugged at the ribbons and pulled at the sticky tape and peered through the paper, only to uncover a novelty-sized coffee cup, a never-before-used cookbook, or my all-time favorite, a rusted hamster cage. I mean, we are talking proper white elephants here. But what blew me away was the more someone enjoyed unwrapping their gift and trying to guess what was inside it, the more likely they were to love what they got. I got the coffee cup. I looked at it and I said, this I'm turning into a pot plant. My brother-in-law's bachelor best friend got the cookbook. And he said, I'm going to impress my next date. And my cousin, who got the hamster cage, peered through the bars and said, this is perfect. My daughter just said she wants a hamster. You're probably wondering, why is the world champion of public speaking telling us about her crazy Christmas traditions? I will tell you why. I've been a Toastmaster for 11 years. It took me 7 months last year to become the world champion. And the biggest thing I've realized is that when it comes to speaking, your speech is the gift that you give to the audience. Every time you speak, you are giving a gift to your audience. Now, you have a choice how you wrap that gift. And I mean, some of us are very good at wrapping, some of us aren't, but you always have a choice in how you wrap your gift. So you could wrap it like this and go, here you go. Great, there's something in here I'm interested to find out. If you're really unimaginative, you could do this and just let them know exactly what you're about to give them. And please don't do this. I'm actually showing you this because sometimes as Toastmasters, we do this in our title. People don't even have to listen to our speech. They already know what we're giving them. There's no curiosity, no anticipation. So rather wrap it like this if you're going to take the simple option. Or you could wrap it like this. Put some time and effort, some intention, get people leaning in, trying to find out what's going on. And those are your two choices. So I just want to check in with you. And again, just pop this in the chat. If I was giving you a gift right now, which do you want, the bag or the box? Bag or box? Which one gets your fancy? I see the box coming in from Delisa, box, from Felicia, box. Some people want the bag, both. I like that box. Just take both. I love it. I'll take the fancy box. Some of us want the bag. I think the majority are going to want the box, maybe because it just makes us a little bit curious. As speakers, that's how we wrap our message, is in our storytelling, in our speech craft, how we make it delightful for our audience to listen and want to learn from us. So when it comes to thinking about your next speech, the first thing I want you to think about are the 3 things that you have to create in your audience to make them take home your message. So the first thing, and this is crucial in all speeches, is you want to create curiosity. And you can do this as early as your title. Like, you don't want to give away where you're going. Okay, don't give away what's happening. Create curiosity. And if you look at previous world champions, you'll see their titles do that. I think the librarian and Mrs. Montgomery, whoa, what's this going to be about? Changed by attire, the ultimate question, the most unbelievable story. These titles create curiosity. Things like throughout your speech saying, and then do you know what happened? And pausing creates curiosity. So look for moments in your storytelling and in how you address the audience that can draw them in and keep them curious, keep them on the edge of their seats, wondering what's going to happen next. So that's the first one. Then coupled with curiosity, you want to create connection. You need your audience regardless of who they are. So you want to be trying to connect to as many people in your audience as possible so that they are with you and wanting your story to resolve in the best possible way. How do we create connection? By speaking about universal human experiences or human wants and desires or fears. If you have managed to watch my champion speech last year, there was a few things I tried to put in there to create connection. The one was the image of my father reading fairy tales to me when I was a little girl. Why? Because most people have had an adult read to them and it gives them a nostalgic moment of, oh yes, that also happened for me. Moments like running into a friend whose life is better and going better than my life was going. We've all had experiences like that at some point. So look for where you can create connection with your audience, speaking about dreams not coming true, about hopes that you're trying to strive for, about embarrassing moments. That connects our audience to us through our humanness. And I really believe as speakers, when we're eliciting curiosity and creating connection, the third thing that we will create every single time in our audience, and that we always want to create, commitment. By the time you finish speaking, if people have been curious, if they have been connected, they are going to commit to your message. They're going to take home whatever shape it is and say, I'm going to make this meaningful for me. So this is our job as speakers, is to create that commitment. But looking at the way you are developing a speech, ask yourself, is this keeping people curious? Am I speaking about connection, experiences they can connect to? Will I get the commitment at the end? So 3 things that you want to create. From there, we go, how do we do that? How do we make sure that the speech we deliver, regardless of whether it's contest or something that you're doing at work, how do we ensure it's a gift for our audience, that they love what we've said? And that's where I want to quickly, I know we've only got kind of 30 minutes before we do Q&A. I just want to quickly take you through what I believe, or what I learned last year as the 4 steps that helped me to write a winning speech. And to make it easy to remember, I'm going to use this idea of gift as the way we unpack this, G-I-F-T. So hopefully you'll be able to bring these back to mind quickly and easily when you need them. So first step, get clear on your message. Any winning speech wins because the message matters, and because people can easily remember what the speaker was trying to say. Again, our previous world champions give us beautiful examples of that. We've had messages like reach out, trust is a must, words have power, the victory is in the try, do you validate, mine was write a different story. These messages are easy for people to remember. So if you're sitting down to write a speech and you're going, what is it that I'm trying to say? And especially if you've entered the contest, ask yourself one simple question. If you had 7 minutes to speak to the world, what is the thing in your heart that you want to share most? And work to find a way to say that message so that it's memorable. 2 tricks with that is it needs to be 10 words or less. And it should be an action statement. So people should hear what it is that they need to do. So that's why I eventually worked on write a different story. There's a clear action that people can remember. And 2 weeks later, they should be able to tell you what the message of your speech was. This is not an easy step. And I say that because my championship speech, I wrote the first version 100 days before the finals. I worked on it every day for 100 days. But only on day 90 did I finally land on the message statement that I knew was what I wanted to say to the world. Earlier versions were get happy, be grateful, have an attitude of gratitude, look for the good, change the way you look at things. You can hear they're very different message statements, but based on feedback from my audience, I had to change it and shift it. And finally, I found that message that really resonated for me. So put in the time working on this and accept that you might not land on that kind of sticky statement in your first try. You might need to work with a coach, a mentor, run it past different clubs, go to different countries, we can virtually, until you finally find that chorus line. I like to think of it like a chorus line that you can keep coming back to through your speech so that it really moves people and they take it home and they make it their own. Okay, so that's step number 1. Step number 2, and it's why we're at Toastmasters, is learning to intentionally craft your story. Because your story could be about missing a plane, it could be quite a long story about completing a degree or overcoming a really big challenge in your life, or it could just be about how your grandfather taught you to boil an egg and the lesson you learned. But how you craft that story is going to be the difference between placing and not placing in a contest. So a few things to bear in mind when you are crafting a story. And again, it doesn't have to be a sensational story. It just needs to be a story that you enjoy telling. The first thing you want to do is throw your audience into your setting. They need to know the time and place and who's taking part in the story as quickly as possible. If you watch my speech, I was a little girl who had big dreams of having the fairy tale life, and I'm 40 and my life does not look the way I wanted. So within 30 seconds, I'd established the setting of my story, that I was the hero, and the obstacle I was facing was my life had not worked out as planned. So you want your audience to feel that tension of what's the problem as early as possible. Then you want to escalate the problem a little bit, because life is interesting because of all the challenges we overcome. So are there things you can add in to really show how big the problem is? And, you know, I had myself watching Netflix and eating ice cream. I then was in a mess going to the shop and created a bit of curiosity by saying, contest chair, have you ever noticed at your worst, you always run into people at their best? Now people are going, oh dear, what's about to happen? And then I ran into that school friend whose life was amazing and she had everything I wanted, and I felt so embarrassed. So through those little moments, I was trying to escalate the obstacles that my character, Verity, was facing. once you've got your audience really on the edge of their seats going, oh my word, I hope you're going to overcome this, that's when you want to introduce the thing that's going to help you resolve your problem, the resolution that's going to move you forward. Now, the trick here is we can never be the guru of our stories. It needs to be someone or something else that teaches us the lesson. My guru was my dad. The messenger was the letter that I found that had his message for me, which was the ultimate message of the speech, write a different story. But through him being the messenger, being the guru, I was the person learning that lesson. And it was through sharing how I applied that lesson that the audience could decide if they wanted to take my message home or not. We have to be very careful as speakers that we're not telling the audience how they should change our lives. I think it's when we authentically share how we've been changed by an experience, how we've had to face our ego, our resistance to change, our fears, and then we started to shift. As we shift, our audience shifts with us. In fact, you shouldn't have to work too hard at the end to get their commitment. If they've loved your story, they've loved how you've overcome those obstacles through the resolution that was offered to you, you will show that change. They will embrace that change. A little trick here is if you have whatever your message statement is, the first time it comes into your speech, it's offered, and now this is the whole point of your speech, but you know, our speech isn't going to end there. The story continues. And I'm sure if you reflect on your own life, you will have been given the perfect lifestyle plan, the perfect exercise plan. These are the 5 steps to change your business. And you might have different stories of this. Ask yourself, did you change immediately when you got that advice? Or did you fall over a few times before you embraced the message and the change? I know I did, but when I wrote the first version of my story, I received a letter from my dad, write a different story, and I changed instantly. Suddenly, I was grateful. I was looking at everything in a new way. And my audience was going, wow, Verity, that's like a pretty overnight change if you were so depressed, because it's not actually how it happened. And so I had to remind myself to write in and share my resistance to change. It also keeps building the tension for the audience, and it makes it more interesting to hear. So I resisted by going, come on, Dad, how do I write a different story? I went to Facebook to check. Oh, you see, everyone else's lives are perfect. The letter was saying, write a different story, and I was still resisting. And then the first time I showed that I was open to change was when I reflected on it. Well, how did my dad write a different story? And I shared examples of how he had changed, and that gave me the courage to change. So this was a game-changing little moment for me when I started sharing with the audience the more human moments of how difficult it is to shift our lives sometimes. Whatever the lesson is you're learning in your speech, just share a little bit of that egoic tug of war that happens when we're trying to become a better version of ourselves. And once you've done that, that's when you land your point. That's the final call to action. This was the point of my speech, is your story being written for you or by you. If you want it to be by you, pick up your pen, write a different story. But it was maybe 45 seconds of my whole speech because the story had showed the transformation. So I know I'm giving you a lot. I know we've only got 30 minutes, so I'm putting a lot in here. But to summarize how you intentionally craft a story, give the setting up front really quickly, establish who the hero is, show the obstacles they're facing and escalate them so that the audience wants them to overcome them. Introduce the resolution to those obstacles through a mentor or a guru, someone or something that teaches them the lesson. And only right at the end, after your hero has applied the lesson and transformed themselves, do you deliver your point. Again, as I said, I worked for 100 days on my winning speech. I worked for 7 months on my semi-final speech, wrote 32 versions of each speech. This is a process. This requires mentorship. It requires coaches. It requires feedback. You're not going to get it right in your first draft, but write the first draft because you have to start somewhere. Okay, so that's step 2. So get clear on your message, intentionally craft your story. The third step is the step that I believe made me world champion. And without this step, I don't think I would have won. And that is fill in the gaps for your audience. You know your story, but the way you tell your story might not be the way they need to hear your story. And the only way to fill in the gaps is to ask them. So I gave people a Google form, I received verbal evaluations, and I said, what's missing? You know, please tell me what's working, but what's missing? What were you confused by? What do you think I could leave out? And it was hard. It was not easy to hear that feedback. I resisted it, especially even when my coach, Lance Miller, was telling me what to change. I didn't even want to write down his notes. I was like, oh, I like the way I'm telling my story. And I'd say, Verity, maybe he knows more than you do. In the same way, maybe our audience knows more than we do. Without audience feedback, I would have missed that in my speech. I thought it was quite a big thing that I was stuck at 40 and my life wasn't working. But I received feedback from an audience member who was 65 going, oh, it's too late for me. You're so lucky you changed your life at 40. That was humbling. So I added in that my dad lost his job at 60. And I added in a phrase to speak to everyone who was older than me, that it doesn't matter what chapter of your life you're in. If I hadn't received that that was a gap for an audience member, I wouldn't have been able to strengthen my speech like that. So don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Know that your ego might resist it, and that just means you're human. But if you're open to saying, how can I become the best speaker I can be? This should really help you to craft a speech that hits all the points that your audience wants, and more importantly, what that your judges are looking for. And last but not least, after you've gotten clear on your message, intentionally crafted your story, you've filled in the gaps for your audience, because after all, the gift is for them. Your job as a speaker is to tie it all together. So by the time you get to your conclusion, you don't want there to be any tendrils or loose ends that people are left wondering about. And that's why the filling in the gaps really, really helps. But also writing a simple speech. That's one idea that you're following through. Even if you're using 3 separate stories to explain one idea, the simpler it is, the easier it is to tie up the elements that made up your speech. So again, I'm not sure how many of you have watched my speech. Maybe you'll go and watch it now, and then this will all make more sense. But at my conclusion, when I started my conclusion, I started by saying, do you know what I've realized? Reading fairy tales is great to my son. I'd started with my dad reading fairy tales to me, so I was tying back to my introduction. I then tied to when my dad reminded me that I'm the author of my life. So now I'm speaking about a letter that had been a big part of my speech. I've realized you need to decide, is your story being written for you or by you? I then moved to, if you're looking for a change, and these are all words and phrases I'd used in the speech. If you're looking for a miracle or you're just ready for a new chapter, there's that phrase I got from feedback. Pick up your pen and write a different story. And my closing line tied all the way back to my introduction and my title, which was, trust me, it will make for a great read. That's our job as a storyteller, is to look at the speech we've written and go, how do I make sure that this is a beautiful tapestry, that every single line and phrase I've used has been repeated if it needed to be, has been referenced back to, and that when I finish strong and with conviction, so the audience is in no doubt that I've handed it over and said, this is for you, take it home. I really hope it makes a difference. So that's what's in your hands. Once you buy your ticket, and it could be for the contest, it could be for a promotion at work, it could be a leadership opportunity, you get to decide how you make your communication a gift for your audience, for your listeners every time you speak. And 4 things, if you focus on getting clear on your message, intentionally craft that story, fill in the gaps for your audience, don't be afraid to take on feedback, make friends with feedback, and tie it all together so your conclusions are always punchy and strong, that I believe will take your speaking to the next level. And, you know, if you haven't bought your ticket already this year, put your name in the hat. You'd be crazy not to try. It'd be crazy not to see what you are capable of as a speaker. Because yes, only one person's guaranteed to grow, guaranteed to win. Everyone's, it would be terrible if only one person could grow. One person is guaranteed to win, but everyone else is guaranteed to grow. And I really hope that you choose the growth that this contest brings and the gift that you will learn to give as a speaker. So my final and lasting message to all of you is, as you walk away from here today, please pick up your pen, write your winning story, and let your voice be a gift to the world. It's been such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Maybe I'm crazy thinking that this might work. Maybe I'm crazy wanting something that might hurt. Maybe it's madness to start something that might end. Maybe it's easier to just not begin. Now maybe delusional, believing this stands a chance when so many before have proved that good things don't last. Seems a little bit naive to step in anyway, but I'd be crazy if I didn't take a step around the corner, confronting all that I don't know, the storms that I might weather, the times of being out of control, not having all the answers. There's never a reason not to try. What if the right brothers hadn't believed that they could fly? Believed that they could fly. I'd be crazy not to try.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Verity. Wow, I have just been taking notes after notes after notes. I loved it, and I'm sure show Verity some love. Please give her your hearts and your applause. Unmute for a moment. Let's give her a big cheer, everybody. Woo!
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. We can
Thank
see
you.
why you are a world champion. And we appreciate the fact that you shared your struggle with us. Thank you so much, Verity, for that gift that you gave us. I especially like the fact that in your slide presentation, you acknowledge that every one of those stories was a gift that we received. And I love that idea that every time we step on the stage, we need to think about the gift we are trying to give to the audience. We have had some questions submitted, and we're going, maybe some of them you might have covered a little bit, but perhaps you could fill them up a little bit. I noticed that you talk about once you get the topic, how to fluff it up and get going, but how do you actually come up with a contest-worthy material or topic? That is there some sort of process that you're willing to share? Like what makes one better than another?
So that is, I think, the ultimate challenge. And one of the really useful things is a tip I got from 2013 world champion Perez Vasilev is keep a story journal. Write a journal of what are the moments in your life. And I mean, he won with a speech about changing a flat tire. So I think it makes you realize we often go, this has to be a sensational thing. It needs to be rags to riches. No, it doesn't. You could give a speech about learning to boil an egg and you could become the world champion if it's delightfully told and if the message is universal. So what are the stories you enjoy telling? What are the challenges you've overcome? What are the people, who are the people who've inspired you? And it could have been that high school teacher, that best friend, that time you lost your bag and it taught you a lesson. So just write a list of those things and then see which one talks to you, because sometimes the speech will be obvious and sometimes you have to go looking for it. My final speech found me at 3 o'clock in the morning. It woke me up. I'd written 4 other speeches about my dad. I had decided, because my semifinals was about my mom, I thought they're both up in heaven. He's going to be really unimpressed if I don't speak about him. So I said, I'm going to write it about him, but I didn't know what. So I took moments from my life with him and I'd written 4 other speeches. And then the one that became a great read woke me up at 3 in the morning and I started writing it. And then you get that bubble of like, this excites me. But that was the hard work then starts. So keep a story journal, problems you've overcome, people who've inspired you, you know, funny moments, and go, what was the lesson I learned that time I couldn't find my car in the parking lot? That could be a champion speech if you bring in humor and tension. And so really trust that you've got the stories inside of you. You don't need to have climbed Mount Everest to be a world champion.
That is a great point. It's that bubble. When you feel that bubble, I think that's a great description. And speaking of humor, you know, speeches are always a little bit more capturing or captivating when you have some humorous anecdotes or humor thrown in. But what's the best way? How do you include humor when your speech is on a topic like, you know, accounting or something more dry, something perhaps you have to do? Is there a way you can grab humor in that situation?
Absolutely. If I was doing a speech on accounting, I'd be, okay, everyone, should we all start yawning now? Because now we're going to look at the numbers. Actually speak to what you're going to speak about. Bring the humor by acknowledging the elephant in the room, if you will. There are opportunities for humor in every topic. It needs to be authentic. It needs to be your style of humor. I think when we try to be humorous, that doesn't work for an audience. But also working with someone else, a mentor or a coach, will sometimes help you find the humor. And the way we write, not all of us write humor into a written speech. So you also need to walk away from the page and speak it as you walk around the room and make a little quip and go, oh, that's actually quite funny. That lifts the mood. I can add that in. So there are always opportunities to have moments, and not every speech has to be, you know, laugh out loud. But I think when we add in humor, the audience feels like we're thinking about them and keeping them entertained.
I think it's interesting that you just said, rehearse your speech out loud, because one of the questions came from a member who said, I find sometimes after I write out the speech, I change it a lot when I practice. So therefore, at the end, this person kind of records it to try to remember that version of it. So the question really is, do you think for a contest, your speech has to be written and delivered word for word? Is that how you get there?
So pretty much, but the way you do that is exactly their process. Write the speech, then rehearse away from the page, then write the way you've said it, because we don't write the way we speak, which is why often when we listen to someone's speech, not even contest, just normal speeches, it sounds like an article, beautifully written, but it would have worked in a magazine. It doesn't work as a speech, and that's because they've written it. So write it and then speak away from the page and find your conversational voice and then type that. Because you have to have something to edit. And when you're reading it, you can see, oh, I could shorten this, oh, I could put in a better adjective there. And then again, speak it off the page and see if it sounds like you. But my speech was written 32 times. Interestingly enough, I said I had 750 words. Someone took it word for word off the contest recording, and it was actually 820, which means I'd still added in things. That's what we do. But I was working off a very solid structure to kind of follow, but it was in my voice.
I agree with you 100%. You know, I find that when I've got my speech all written out as I'm practicing, I also find, wow, I can't say that because my tongue keeps tripping on that phrase. It's not a good, may look good, but I can't say it correctly. Thank you for that tip. So would you say then, what's the difference between writing your speech and using sort of an outline format? Some people are trained that they should just use note cards and outlines versus a written script. How does that translate to a contest situation?
I don't think it translates to a contest situation at all. The judges are working off a very specific ballot. They're looking for language, intentional body use, audience interaction, relevance, message. So an outline works for a keynote. For something like this, this is my third time today delivering. I've had 45 minutes, 30 minutes. I can't have typed up every version. I have to go, I'm going to have to leave that out. And I've got a timer keeping me, my slides on my key cards. But for a contest speech, you're wanting intentional alliteration, characterization, dialogue. That's not going to come off an outline. That's going to come out of intentional storycraft. And you don't want to go over time, and an outline's never going to help you in a contest. I mean, it might. Maybe someone will prove me wrong, but I've had over 30 champions and finalists kind of weigh in on this, and I've actually got the numbers in front of me here. And 70% of them practiced more than 200 times. 66% of them wrote more than 30 versions. So they wrote them. There was no outline there.
Well, then how about this? Is it ever possible to over-rehearse?
Yes, it is. That's what kills your speech. And I was so over it. Both of my speeches, by the time I got to the semifinals and the finals, I was like, this is boring. This is bland. I've been doing this for months. So what helps, my trick, is rehearse in a silly voice. Do it as a different character. I mean, you will have a giggle because I often do a Southern accent when I'm wanting to have a little bit of fun, and I get real. No, actually, I think I went a bit more LA there, so I'm going to stop. But I do accents, or I do British, or I do a little girl, and it helps me run through the content, but not get so caught. And it has to be exactly this way, and that keeps it fresh. Do you like the silly accents? Oh my word, I will bring them on for you, no problem.
I like accents, so I'm with you on that.
You can tell me what country you want to go to and we'll go.
We might have to test you at the end of this question period. And by the way, if anybody does have a burning question I'm not covering, just stick it in the chat real fast, please. So you're now the world champion of public speaking. Has that benefited, or how has that benefited your career, your speaking opportunities? Has it changed your life, and how?
So it's definitely, it's not as big, you hear kind of urban legends and urban myths of how it changes someone's life overnight, but it has tripled my business, which is amazing. And it's given me this opportunity to speak all over the world, connect to the Toastmasters community. I didn't know that was part of the win. No one warns you actually how much you do after you win, and you're just recovering from having won. But it's been incredible. It's helped me engage with the world. And I'm hoping that it's going to bring me more international opportunities to work. But in South Africa, my business has more than tripled.
So about that urban legend, somebody really wants to know, does it mean you can start charging for your speeches?
Absolutely. I mean, I was already a professional speaker, so I was already charging. It helped me to double my fee. So, and people were happy to pay because it's the world champion. But definitely, if you're not already a professional speaker, it puts you in the arena to be a paid speaker and build your craft. Giving a keynote is very different to doing a 7-minute speech. And some of the previous world champions will tell you that it came as a shock that suddenly they had to speak for a long time. So prepare yourself if you're hoping to bring home the trophy this year.
Great response. So we want to know, do you record your speech a lot prior to the international, or just practice a lot in front of other people? Ooh. Or are there some other options?
So you have to record, you have to watch, you have to see, especially now it's virtual, but even in person recording helped. How am I using the space? And also watch yourself with the sound switched off. Is it engaging? Because if it looks boring and you go, ooh, I need to up my energy. So recording's really, really helpful.
Oh, that's a great tip. Now we're in this virtual world like we are now. What's the difference between competing online and competing in person? How do you maximize your online presence?
So online is harder and easier. So the harder is you have no audience, you have nothing to gauge. You've just got to imagine the humor is landing, that those close, intimate moments are resonating. But you have the screen to use, and you can play with your camera and have moments as if you're looking at people, and then also just deliver or use your screen. So this is a wonderful format to learn to use to make the online virtual space more engaging. The easier part of online is that because you've got no audience interaction, you don't have laughter cutting your time. My speech would have had to be a good 50 to 100 words less for a live audience, because if there'd been real laughs, I could have been disqualified. So that is the tough thing in a live one. You have to work on the audience. If they want to clap for an extra 10 seconds, you can't be panicking. You have to have rehearsed for that. So the online gives you that advantage, but then you're worrying about losing your internet. There's your child banging on the door. There's a lot of things.
I have to tell you that I know I have been a reluctant a reluctant follower of recordings. I hated to see myself on video, and I've been a Toastmaster for a long time, but being virtual has really forced me to try to maximize this universe and into a new communication style. So I appreciate those tips, and I think it's good tools for all of us. Finally, so do you take time now to attend contests? You know, we have a lot of area contests going on in our district and probably around the world. Do you get invitations? Do you attend them? Do you use them to practice? What's your general schedule like?
My schedule is hectic, and I do events like the one that I'm sharing with you today, 3 or 4 every weekend, which is very hard on my family life. So I've had to draw back on doing club events. But at my club, I'm very active and I'm part of the contest journey, and I'm supporting my members to see where they can go. But I haven't, my schedule is pretty jammed between work and my Toastmasters responsibilities. So unfortunately, I won't be able to attend as many contests, but maybe district contests, I'll be able to attend some of those.
Verity, we so appreciate you taking the time to share this great formulaic approach to contest speeches. We loved your stories. It's obvious to us why you are a winner, and we really appreciate that conversation we've been able to have. Thank you for joining us in District 84. I'm going to turn control of the meeting now over to our marvelous Maria Martinez, our Public Relations Manager for District 84. Everybody, one more time, a big round of applause, please, for Verity. Makes me want to go to South Africa.
Yes, come to Cape Town. I'm on the slopes of Table Mountain. I'll show you around.
Thank you so much, Verity. It's been such a pleasure and an honor. Hopefully, we do have a minute at the end of our time together to take a picture with you. But before I come back with a few final announcements, I would like you all to help me welcome our District Director for a few final remarks, Debbie Jo Londono.
Thank you so much, Verity. This really was a gift. Paula, make sure you send her an invite to the district contest. Thank you, Verity, for sharing your journey with us. You drew us in. You made us curious. You definitely made a connection with your story. And I noticed that several people made a commitment in chat to get their ticket. So good luck to everyone that is competing this year and also in future years. Like Verity said, remember, you may not always win, but you will always learn and grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie Jo, and thank you again, everybody, for attending. I only have a couple of final remarks here as we wind down and we say goodbye to Verity for now, because we definitely want to see her again. We're not going to have time, but we're going to share all of your points of contact, Verity. Thank you so much, as well as the link for your winning speech, because if you didn't see it, you are in for a treat. So I'd like to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for joining us today, and especially our guest of honor, Verity Price. We have a certificate of appreciation for you, and what a gift you've given us today. Also, special thanks to our Zoom masters, Sue and Felicia, who had everything cute and ready to go to make this presentation smooth and enjoyable. We'd like to invite you. We have a lot of things and a lot of events in the works. So please support our efforts. Make sure that you're following on all of the social media sites, subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to the podcast, because your district is truly devoted to enhancing your experience this year. And next up on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we have a leadership panel called Know Before You Go. So make sure that you join us there. Ask us any questions if you have any questions in terms of how to join. And finally, we'll be sending an event post-event survey today. So take a few minutes to tell us how you enjoyed today's presentation and what else can we do to support you and to truly enhance your Toastmaster experience this year. Remember, when it comes to contests, only one person wins, but we can all grow, just like Verity reminded us. Let's tell our own story and grow together as we achieve tremendous success personally and professionally, District 84. Remember that we're never too old to set a new goal or dream a new dream or to win a contest like Verity. So everybody, thank you so much again for joining.